How's it going, guys? In this video, we're talking about the Patriots' second selection in the draft. If you missed our previous video that's on Christian Gonzalez, I will link it in the top right corner of the screen. That is for our first overall pick, which I thought was an incredible pick, so check that out first. But today we're talking about Keion White, which is the second overall pick. That the Patriots selected, at least, not the entire draft, obviously. And he was selected in the second round. That's Keion White, drafted by the Patriots in the second round, pick 15, right in the middle, and it was actually the Patriots draft pick that they had originally. So they didn't trade for it, they didn't trade back, they didn't trade up. This was just their pick to begin with. And I think Keion White is an okay pick. This isn't my favorite pick, and I'm not head over heels about it like I am for Christian Gonzalez. This is a pick that I think is solid, and that's about it. He's 6'5", which obviously leaves, you know, that's really good for a defensive player in general, especially along the line. You want to have some height there, and that is a really, really good height. He's 285 pounds. He is a defensive end, by the way, edge rusher, quote unquote, but really, he plays a lot more like a defensive end, and even, I would say, a lot closer to a defensive tackle than an outside linebacker. Now, I might be wrong about that, about where he's going to end up playing, but I watched a lot of film before making this video just so that I could kind of describe to you how I've seen him play, and I see a lot more of an interior rusher here from him. So it does say edge, but I think that with his speed, which is slightly lacking in my opinion, and I think with just the big kind of power kind of shedding that he has, I think that he's going to be a lot more of an interior player here for the Patriots. Now, like I said earlier, that speed is lacking in my opinion. You watch the tape, if you go watch the highlights, he doesn't have super explosive speed, and there is even some coverage highlights versus some, you know, more not as good colleges that they played, Georgia Tech. And when they played these schools that don't have quite as much talent, you would see some coverage tape of him, and it seems very, very slow. And he was only able to cover some running backs kind of with just very simple out routes, probably the slower types of running backs. So I don't see this being kind of a linebacker player for the Patriots. This is much more of a defensive end, a pure defensive end pick. Now, that being said, with that considered, I have to say, he does seem to have very, very powerful moves there in the more interior defensive line, and he does actually have a lot of tape of just mauling straight through offensive linemen, which is what you want to see from this type of a player. I see this being a much more running defense contribution here than a passing defense, and of course he's probably going to get sacks if he ends up being a starter one day, but I see him much more of a running defender. He can just disrupt the line, and a lot of those running plays he can disrupt before they even start. So that's going to be a pretty useful thing, obviously, for the Patriots, who honestly, for the past like 10 years, the biggest thing on defense has been the rushing defense. It's just been so suspect. I can recall some years between like 2013 and 2017, I would say, basically right before we got Stephon Gilmore, that the Patriots passing defense was pretty suspect, but since then that has not been as big of a concern until this previous season. Honestly, that was the first year that I felt that way kind of again. But back in the days of Malcolm Butler and Logan Ryan on the other side, I remember Logan Ryan making me absolutely lose my mind sometimes. Let me know if you remember those days, but you know, 2014 through 2017 time frame, I was absolutely losing it at times because Malcolm Butler was holding down his half, but Logan Ryan was giving up play after play after play, first down after first down after first down, and it was madness. Anyway, totally off topic there. Keion White, back to him. He is a bigger player, and I do have a kind of comparison. This is what the NFL website has as a comparison, and I think the weight, the height, the play style in general all kind of matches up really good. So I liked this comp, and I wanted to share it with you guys, and he is a defensive end. It's John Franklin Myers, actually, from the Jets. And this is a player that is 288 pounds versus Keion White's 285 pounds, so very, very close, and he's 6'4" versus Keion White's 6'5". So again, extremely close there in size. Now, he has a 4-year career under his belt where he's played defensive tackle and defensive end, John Franklin Myers, that is. And he has, let's see, 10 combined tackles on his first year, 19 his second year, 35 in his third year, and then 38 in his fourth year. So the tackles are climbing each year. He had 2 sacks his first year, 3 sacks his second year, 6 sacks his third year, and then 5 sacks in his fourth year. So he started to also ramp up on those sacks as well. So he's a slow developmental player, but finally here in his fourth year, he's become a pretty good player for the Jets, as much as I hate to say that, playing something between defensive tackle and defensive end, which, if you've been listening, obviously is what I've kind of described my perception of what Keion White would look like moving forward. Now, I will say another thing that I kind of dislike about Keion White just right off the bat, and if you guys watched my Christian Gonzalez video first, you would know this, but I love when a player that we draft is very young to begin with, and that gives them a lot of time to develop. I want to say Christian Gonzalez, I'll search it up real quick, but I want to say that he is actually 21 years old. No, he's 20, so he's actually 20 years old. And that again gives him like 4 years more than other players in the draft have to develop. So think of 4 years. That's your whole rookie contract to develop before some players are even coming into the draft and being drafted by teams. Keion White happens to be 24, so he's literally 4 years older than our first round pick Christian Gonzalez. If you think about it and do the math, 24, you only have 6 years until you're 30. After you turn 30, you're kind of entering into that stage where you're plateauing and eventually falling off. I don't mean to make some of us in the video here that are listening feel old, but in NFL standards, that's what ends up happening. So if you're 24 years old when you come into the league, you have 6 years until you hit 30. If you're 20 years old and you enter into the draft, you have 10 years, 2033, until you turn 30 years old. He was born in 2002, Christian Gonzalez. Think about that. 2002 he was born. Okay, that's 2 years after I was born. That's weird to even think about, that he's entering into the NFL. Keion White was born in 1999. So still, that is pretty recently, but that's a absolutely massive difference. Okay, so I hope that kind of age thing makes sense as far as development, but that is one of my biggest things that I don't like about Keion White. But I will say, kind of being the devil's advocate here, my number one thing that I didn't like about Kyle Duggar a couple of years coming out of the draft was that he was, I think, 25 coming out of the draft, because he's 27 now, and we've seen him become an amazing strong safety for the Patriots. And honestly, I would not change a thing about that pick. And I probably would have said the same thing that I'm saying about Keion White right now about the Kyle Duggar pick. So take it with a grain of salt is all I'm saying. But that does play a role. I'd rather him be 20 right now than, 24. I think that makes sense. I'd rather him be 18, for goodness sake. I mean, that would give him even more time. Obviously, that's not even possible, but you get the point. I mean, the more time you have to develop, the more chance of them becoming an amazing player by time they're reaching their prime of their career. So, long story short here, I see Keion White as an interior defender, defensive end, defensive tackle, potentially playing either or both. I do not see him as an edge or a linebacker. That's just not what I see from him. He's too slow in today's game to play the linebacker position, in my opinion. And if they do play him at linebacker, watch out, because I think that speed is going to be an issue. So I would love to see him play as an interior defender, if we even see him play. It's never guaranteed. So we're going to move into training camp, we're going to move into preseason, and we're going to see a lot more about Keion White here. I'm excited to talk about it. I'm excited to see him develop and watch him with you guys. But that is my current thoughts. So let me know if you've researched anything about this player. Let me know what your thoughts are, or if you just agree with everything I've said or disagree. Let me know in the comments down below, because the comments help the algorithm. I'm going to be real, but I also love hearing from you guys. Also, like the video. Again, that algorithm helps out a lot. You can subscribe, because we are making our next videos very soon, referring to all of these rookies that we had from the draft. So we're going to be breaking all of these down and then moving into kind of the preseason eventually very soon. So we have a lot of exciting videos coming up, so be sure to subscribe. You can even hit the bell icon for notifications when we upload. I'll see you guys in the next one.